Excuse me, ma'am. Could you be my mommy for just 3 hours? Veronica Lane froze. The cup of espresso in her hand trembled slightly, and she turned toward the voices soft, trembling, impossibly sincere. Standing beside her was a little black girl, no more than 7 years old, with her hair braided into neat cornrows and a worn pink dress that fluttered slightly in the morning breeze. Veronica blinked. I'm sorry, what did you say? The girl stepped closer, tugging gently at the sleeve of her blazer. Just 3 hours. I want to have a real birthday with my dad and a mom. Just once. Today's my birthday. Behind the child, a tall, broad-shouldered black man stood frozen in shock. His uniform was the charcoal gray suit of Lane Equity's private security division. Clean, sharp, but not flashy. His name played Red Jackson. He was one of her senior protection officers. She knew him, efficient, always professional. Maya, he said, his voice breaking through a mix of surprise and alarm. Sweetheart, don't bother the lady. Veronica held up her hand. It's okay, she said gently, crouching to Maya's level. The girl's eyes glistened. I never had a party. Daddy always tries, but he works a lot. And I heard him say, moms make birthdays special. I want to go to the family fun park with both my parents just once. Ah. Veronica opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came. Her throat tightened. She felt something stir inside, an ache she hadn't let surface in years. She thought she had buried the emptiness of never having children of her own. Had accepted that her world was conference rooms and board votes, not birthday candles and family carousels. I don't think I can, she began. But Maya's eyes dropped, her lower lip quivered, and the girl turned slowly as if to walk away. Her shoulders slumped, her small hands clenched into fists. That image, oh, tiny, so quietly devastated, struck Veronica like a blade to the chest. Wait, she said, rising quickly. Maya, right? The girl turned, hesitant. Veronica knelt again, reaching out gently. 3 hours, huh? That's all you want? Maya nodded, silent tears tracing lines down her round cheeks. Veronica smiled, tears prickling her own eyes. Then it would be an honor. With a gasp, Maya ran forward and threw her arms around Veronica's neck. Thank you, Mommy, she whispered, burying her face into Veronica's blazer. Over her shoulder, Veronica saw Jackson wiping at his eyes, clearly overwhelmed. As Maya let go of Veronica, she skipped back to him and without warning, kissed his cheek. Daddy, this is the best birthday ever. Veronica rose, brushing her skirt smooth. Jackson stepped forward, voice low, but filled with gratitude. Ma'am, I didn't know she'd say that. I swear I didn't put her up to it. She touched his arm just briefly. I know you didn't. I've seen how you watch over this building. I never knew the man behind the uniform, but I'd like to. Maya ran between them again. Can we go now? The park's got a big slide shaped like a dragon. Veronica looked down at her heels, then back at the child's radiant smile. She checked her phone, meetings could wait. For once, something mattered more. Let's go make a memory, she said softly. In that moment, beneath the Los Angeles morning sky, 3 lives quietly turned a corner into something whole, something unexpected, and very possibly something beautiful. The black SUV rolled gently through the palm streets of Westwood, humming quietly as it approached the city's largest family park. From the back seat, Maya's voice rang out in bubbly excitement. Look, that's the dragon slide I told you about. Veronica Lane, seated beside her, smiled faintly. The corners of her eyes crinkled, not from corporate strain, but from something softer. Beside her, Maya kicked her legs in tiny, rhythmic motions, her pink sneakers tapping against the leather seat. Jackson sat in the front passenger seat, stiff, his large frame clearly out of its element. He wasn't used to this, not the civilian side of things, and certainly not sharing such a deeply personal moment with his employer. His usual calm was replaced with visible discomfort. Veronica noticed. You can relax, she said, her tone warm, but firm. You're not guarding me today. You're the dad of the birthday girl. He gave a weak smile through the rear-view mirror. Yes, ma'am, still trying to adjust to that. As the vehicle pulled into the parking lot, Maya leaned forward. Are we really doing this? Like all three of us? Veronica turned to her. Yes. Today is about you, Maya. 3 hours, all yours. Jackson opened the door and stepped out, offering his hand to help his daughter. Veronica followed, her high heels now exchanged for a pair of soft flats she kept in the car, an executive's concession to comfort. It had been years since she'd visited a park like this. The air smelled of popcorn, pavement, and the distant whir of carnival rides. They walked together, the three of them, a triangle that hadn't existed until 20 minutes ago, but now moved like a unit. Maya ran ahead toward the dragon slide, her laughter echoing. Veronica couldn't stop watching her, as if afraid that looking away would end the spell. Jackson cleared his throat. You didn't have to say yes, you know. I wouldn't have blamed you for walking away. I almost did, Veronica admitted, but then she looked at me and I realized no business deal could ever be more urgent. Jackson said nothing at first. Then quietly, she talks about her mom a lot. Barely remembers her, but she pretends she does. I'm sorry, Veronica said sincerely. Breast cancer took her fast. Maya was 5. He paused. It's been just us ever since. I'm not great at birthdays. You're better than you think, she said, watching how Maya waved wildly from the top of the slide. Veronica joined Maya at the game section, letting her pick a prize at a ring toss booth. Maya insisted Veronica throw the rings, too. Her first toss went wildly off course, prompting the child to giggle. You throw like a grandma. Veronica laughed, a real laugh. Then it's a good thing you're my coach. They moved from rides to cotton candy to a puppet show, with Jackson finally loosening enough to chuckle as Maya pretended to be the puppeteer. Veronica saw something shift in him. His posture eased, his eyes softened. At noon, they found a picnic bench under a shady elm. Jackson pulled out a homemade lunchbox with sandwiches and apple slices. Veronica, always prepared, offered fresh juice and cookies from the park's cafe. Maya took a bite and looked at them both with exaggerated drama. This is the best birthday lunch ever. Right, Mommy? Jackson froze. Veronica looked up. The word had slipped out of Maya's mouth so naturally, so easily. Her eyes met Jackson's, son, apologetic, but before she could speak, Maya leaned in and whispered, You can be my mommy just for today, remember? Veronica nodded, touched, and simply said, Then I'm honored. Maya beamed, then got up and danced around the table. Next, the Ferris wheel. As she ran off, Jackson murmured, You're handling this better than I imagined. I don't know what I'm doing, Veronica confessed. But for the first time in years, I don't feel like I have to know. They followed Maya to the Ferris wheel. The attendant smiled at them, asking if they were one group. Veronica hesitated only a second before answering. Yes, family. The ride was slow, panoramic. From the top, the city stretched beneath them, a mosaic of lives and possibilities. Veronica sat between Maya and Jackson, the wind brushing her face, the moment strangely serene. Down below, the sun dipped slightly. Afternoon light glazed everything in gold. They disembarked, still holding hands. As they walked toward the exit, Maya reached up and clutched both their hands. Can we do this again next year? I mean, pretend I have a mommy and daddy who take me places. Veronica knelt beside her. Sweetheart, today wasn't pretend. It was real. Every moment of it. Maya smiled, but her eyes hinted at something deeper, like she didn't quite believe magic could last. Veronica pulled her in and hugged her tight. You are loved, Maya. Whether it's 3 hours or a lifetime. Behind them, Jackson stood still, watching the two most unexpected women in his life he had raised and one he never imagined would enter his world. In the distance, bells from the carousel played a fading tune, and the smell of roasted peanuts lingered in the breeze. And for that moment, they weren't bodyguard, CEO, and fatherless child. They were simply a family, if only for a day. The late afternoon sun hung low over Los Angeles, casting long golden beams through the tinted windows of Veronica's SUV. The vehicle had returned them to Jackson's modest duplex in Englewood, a quiet, well-kept neighborhood where lawns were edged by chain-link fences and neighbors still waved from porches. Maya had fallen asleep on the ride home, her curls resting against Veronica's shoulder. Jackson turned off the ignition, looking back to see the sight that for a split second made his breath catch. His daughter, so content, curled up beside a woman she'd only met hours ago. It looked like she had always belonged there. "She's out cold," Veronica whispered. "She's had the best day of her life," Jackson replied, stepping out and opening the door for her. "I think you've just become the bar to beat." Veronica carefully slid out, gently cradling Maya in her arms. "She's lighter than I thought," she said softly. "So much energy in one tiny person." Jackson led the way up the front steps and opened the door. Inside, the home was modest but spotless. Photos of Maya lined the hallway in school plays, with her dad at the beach, hugging a teddy bear half her size. Veronica gently placed the girl on a couch in the living room. Jackson retrieved a soft blanket and draped it over her. "She likes to nap there," he said, lowering his voice. "Says it feels like a ship floating in the sky." Veronica lingered by the couch, brushing a stray lock of hair from Maya's forehead. Then she straightened up and looked around. There was warmth here. Lived in love. It felt more like home than her penthouse ever had. Jackson cleared his throat. "Can I get you something to drink? Coffee? Tea?" She hesitated. "Tea sounds nice. If it's not too much trouble." In the kitchen, the kettle hissed softly. Jackson moved with quiet purpose, pouring hot water over a chamomile sachet into a heavy ceramic mug. Veronica sat at the small dining table, her posture less guarded than usual. "She talked about this day for weeks," Jackson said, setting the mug before her. "Didn't tell me until this morning that she planned to ask someone to be her mommy for a day. I thought it was make-believe, just a kid's dream." Veronica held the mug between her palms. "Sometimes the boldest dreams come from the smallest voices." He chuckled dryly. "You're not what I imagined she'd latch onto." Veronica raised an eyebrow, amused. "No offense, but what exactly did you imagine?" Jackson shifted slightly, embarrassed. "Maybe a teacher, a nurse, someone less intimidating." "You think I'm intimidating?" He met her gaze. "You're the CEO of a billion-dollar firm, ma'am. I'd call that objectively intimidating." She smirked. "Then today must have been very confusing." He nodded. "It was, still is." There was a moment of silence. Then Jackson leaned forward, folding his hands. "Why'd you say yes, really?" Veronica looked at the steam rising from her tea. "I don't have children. I always told myself it was because of my work. But the truth is, I stopped believing I deserved that kind of love a long time ago." He didn't interrupt. "When Maya asked me," she continued, "it was like someone reached through the fog I've been living in and turned on a light." Jackson nodded slowly. "She has that effect." Another silence. Then Veronica asked, "What about you? Why security? Why not something bigger?" "I was Army," he said. 4 tours. Came home after my wife died. Didn't want combat anymore, but I still needed to protect something." His eyes drifted toward the couch where Maya stirred in her sleep, murmuring something unintelligible. "She saved me," he said. "More than I saved her." Veronica reached across the table and touched his hand. "She's lucky to have you." He looked at her hand, didn't pull away. "We're both lucky, it seems." The sound of a soft knock broke the moment. Jackson rose, expecting someone. He opened the door to reveal an elderly woman holding a small, colorfully wrapped box. She beamed when she saw him. "Afternoon, Jackson. I heard it was someone's birthday today." "Mrs. Ellery," he said, smiling warmly. "Come in." She stepped inside, her eyes twinkling as she caught sight of Veronica. "And who's this lovely lady?" Jackson hesitated, then said, "This is Veronica." She's a friend. Veronica stood to shake her hand. It's a pleasure, Mrs. Ellery leaned in, stage whispering. He doesn't have many of those, you know. Keep him talking. Veronica chuckled. I'll do my best. After some polite conversation and birthday wishes, the older woman left, promising to stop by with peach cobbler later. Jackson closed the door, shaking his head. She's like the community grandma. Keeps tabs on everyone. You'll be a hot topic at tomorrow's church gathering. I can handle a little gossip, Veronica said. Maya stirred again, this time sitting up slowly. Daddy. Jackson crossed to her. I'm here, Pumpkin. Her eyes lit up as she saw Veronica. You're still here. Veronica smiled. I couldn't leave without saying goodbye. Maya stood on the couch and threw her arms around Veronica. You're my wish come true. Veronica hugged her tightly, her voice cracking. And you're mine, sweetheart. As the evening deepened and shadows lengthened in the cozy home, the three of them sat together. No contracts, no roles, no expectations, just a soldier, a CEO, and a little girl who dared to believe in family, even if just for a day. The next morning, sunlight poured through the tall windows of Veronica Lane's penthouse suite, illuminating the sleek surfaces and cold angles of a life too carefully curated. Her home was silent, spotless, and sterile, a stark contrast to the warmth of Jackson's living room just hours before. She stood by the espresso machine in her kitchen, stirring her coffee with slow, deliberate motions. Her mind was elsewhere. She kept seeing Maya's sleepy smile. The way the little girl had whispered, "You're my wish come true." As they hugged goodbye, something about that moment had cracked open a place inside her she didn't even know was closed. Her phone buzzed on the counter, a meeting reminder. Board strategy session 8 a.m. sharp. Veronica took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and walked into her office. Within minutes, she was back in command. Heels clicking against the marble floor, assistant trailing behind her with files and updates. The building greeted her like a queen returning to her court. Everyone stood straighter, spoke faster, moved more carefully, but something was off. During the board meeting, she found herself zoning out. Graphs blurred, buzzwords dissolved, and when someone asked for her opinion on a merger proposal, she blinked and realized she hadn't heard a word. I'll need more time to review, she said curtly and dismissed the meeting 10 minutes early. Back in her private office, she pulled open a drawer and retrieved a small folded paper, Maya's drawing. A family of three, a tall dad, a woman with long dark hair, and a small girl holding both their hands. Above it, in blocky letters, was written, "My best day." Her fingers traced the crayon outlines. A knock interrupted her reverie. "Come in," she called. It was Elena, her executive assistant. "Mississippi Lane, there's an issue downstairs." "What kind of issue?" "A man tried to enter the building with his child. Security says he doesn't have an appointment, but he claims you know him." "Name's Jackson." Veronica's heart gave a jolt. "Let them in now." Minutes later, Jackson appeared at her door, Maya holding his hand. She looked less jubilant than yesterday, more shy, cautious. Jackson looked equally uncertain, dressed in plain clothes rather than his usual security uniform. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "I didn't mean to cause a scene." She insisted. Veronica knelt down. "Hey, Maya, everything okay?" Maya hesitated, then nodded. I wanted to bring you something." From her backpack, she pulled out a small plastic tiara, glittery and slightly bent. "You forgot to wear this at the park," she said. "All birthday moms wear one." "Oh." Veronica took the tiara with trembling fingers. "Thank you, sweetheart." Jackson shifted uncomfortably. "She made me walk 5 blocks before I could convince her you weren't mad." Veronica smiled. "How about you both come in for a minute?" They sat together in her office, Maya on Veronica's lap, the plastic tiara perched awkwardly on her head. Jackson tried not to stare. It was something surreal about seeing the high-powered CEO of Lane Equity wearing sparkles like a proud 5-year-old. Veronica asked gently, "Did something happen today?" Maya nodded. A boy at school said I made up having a mommy. That no one like you would ever be with someone like us. Jackson looked mortified. She just told me on the way here. Veronica's smile vanished. What did you say to him? I told him he was wrong, Maya said fiercely. But then I got scared. I thought maybe you didn't want to be my mommy, even just pretend anymore. Veronica hugged her tighter. Maya, what you said yesterday, what we shared, it was real. No one gets to take that away. Jackson exhaled slowly, visibly moved. You didn't have to say that, but thank you. After a few more minutes, Veronica walked them out herself. As they reached the lobby, she turned to Jackson. Come by Saturday. I want to take you both somewhere. He looked surprised. You sure? I wouldn't offer if I wasn't. Maya beamed. Will there be pancakes? Veronica laughed. There will be pancakes. Back in her office, Elena approached cautiously. Everything all right, Mississippi Lane? Veronica looked down at the tiara still in her hand. It's starting to be. Later that afternoon, as Veronica reviewed the next quarter's strategy plans, she paused and typed something into her phone. To Jackson. Subject, Saturday plans. Message, hope you both like horses. There's a stable just outside the city. Thought it might be nice to try something new. Let me know. She hit send before she could overthink it. That night, alone again in her apartment, Veronica placed Maya's drawing on the fridge held in place by a Lane Equity magnetic clip. For once, it wasn't a stock report or a project outline she saw first when she entered her kitchen. It was that picture, that day, that feeling. And as she stood there, tea in hand, her phone buzzed once more. From Jackson, message, we're in. And for the record, thank you. You've made her believe again. I think maybe you've made me believe, too. Veronica stared at the screen for a long moment. Then smiled to herself. Maybe 3 hours wasn't so small after all. Maybe it was the beginning of something neither of them could quite name yet, but could feel clearly growing between them. Something like hope. Something like healing. Something like family. Saturday morning dawned crisp and clear with a rare breeze cutting through the usual Los Angeles heat. Veronica stood in front of her full-length mirror, adjusting the buttons on her soft denim blouse. Her usual power suits were neatly tucked away. Today, she wore jeans, boots, and a light jacket, practical, approachable, and maybe for the first time in years, a little unsure. She looked at herself one last time and allowed a small smile. Horses, Veronica, you're taking a child to see horses, not negotiating a defense contract. Her driver pulled into Jackson's neighborhood just before 9. As she stepped out of the car, she saw him already waiting by the curb, wearing jeans and a navy flannel, his tall frame relaxed but alert. Maya stood next to him, bouncing on the balls of her feet in an oversized hoodie and tiny cowgirl boots that were clearly too big but full of personality. There she is, Maya squealed. Mommy for a day again. Veronica laughed, bending to hug her. More like mommy for a Saturday, remember? Maya leaned in and whispered conspiratorially. That's still better than none. Jackson chuckled as he opened the car door for them. You sure you're ready for this? I've handled hostile shareholders, Veronica replied with mock seriousness. I think I can handle ponies. As the SUV pulled away, Maya launched into an excited stream of chatter, talking about every animal she hoped to see and which one she wanted to name after Veronica. Jackson watched quietly from the front seat, every so often glancing back with that mix of affection and disbelief that had become familiar over the past few days. The ranch was just north of the city, nestled in a quiet stretch of rolling hills. It was owned by one of Veronica's former college classmates who had left finance to find her soul among animals. The moment they arrived, a warm breeze carried the scent of hay, leather, and sunlight. A young woman in a straw hat approached. Veronica, still punctual after all these years. Hello, Marlene. Veronica smiled, introducing Jackson and Maya. These two are first-timers. Then they're in for a treat, Marlene said, bending down to Maya's level. Ever ride a pony before? Maya shook her head, eyes wide. Only in dreams. Well, Marlene said, standing. Today, dreams come true. They spent the morning brushing and feeding the ponies, with Maya naming each one Veronica for the sassiest, Jackson for the strongest, and Buttercup for the one that sneezed when she laughed. Veronica found herself laughing more than she had in months. At one point, Jackson offered her a hand as she tried to step over a low fence. Their hands lingered for a moment longer than necessary. Neither said anything about it. Later, as Maya rode her pony slowly around the corral, Veronica and Jackson sat on a bench under a tree, watching in silence. She hasn't smiled like this since before, Veronica nodded. She's special. She's resilient, Jackson added, like her mother was. Veronica turned toward him. You don't talk about her much. It's hard, he admitted. She was the light. I was just the guard. Don't do that, Veronica said gently. You're the foundation. That little girl doesn't just love you. She trusts the world because of you. Jackson looked down, his voice low. What about you? Ever come close? Marriage, kids? Veronica hesitated. I came close once. We had plans, talked names, even picked furniture. Then I got promoted. He didn't follow. Said I chose ambition over intimacy. Jackson raised an eyebrow. Did you? She shrugged. I thought I had to. That you couldn't have both. And now? She looked at him. Now I'm not so sure. A silence settled between them, not heavy, comfortable. Maya's laughter in the background stitched the quiet into something soft. As the afternoon wore on, they sat around a wooden table with lemonade and fresh sandwiches Marlene had prepared. Maya told stories of her ponies, making up wild adventures and elaborate rescue missions. Veronica leaned in. So, do I get to come back next Saturday? Maya grinned. Only if you bring cookies. Done, Veronica said. But only if your dad lets me. Jackson looked up, surprised. There was something in her eyes, playful, open, unguarded. He smiled. I think we can work that out. Before leaving, Marlene handed Veronica a framed photo. One of her staff had taken Maya on the pony, arms raised like a tiny queen, Veronica and Jackson behind her, smiling. For your fridge, Marlene said, winking. Veronica held it to her chest. Thank you. On the drive back, Maya fell asleep again, this time cradled between them in the back seat. Veronica gently rested a hand over hers, and Jackson noticed but said nothing. As they pulled up to Jackson's home, he turned to her. Thank you, Veronica. For everything today. She smiled. This isn't just for her, Jackson. I know, he said quietly. That's what scares me. Veronica stepped out of the car, then turned back. You're not the only one scared. Their eyes met and understanding forged in the most unexpected of places. As she drove away, the photograph still in her lap, Veronica didn't feel the usual emptiness when the day ended. She felt something settling, something right, and for the first time in a long, long while, she didn't dread next Saturday. She counted the days. It was Wednesday morning, just 3 days after their ranch outing, when Veronica walked into her office and immediately sensed something off. Her assistant, Elena, barely met her eyes as she handed her the morning briefing folder. The usual hustle and clipped greetings in the executive corridor felt more strained, hesitant, as if the air had thickened with invisible tension. Elena, Veronica asked, pausing before entering her office. What's going on? Elena hesitated. There's a situation. A reporter from LA Metro Post left a message asking for comments about what Elena swallowed, you, Jackson Rhee, and a child named Maya. Veronica's fingers stiffened around the folder. What exactly did they say? They're planning a story, Elena said carefully, implying that you've entered a personal relationship with one of your employees and that you're using company resources for private outings. Veronica blinked. You're joking. I wish I was. Elena lowered her voice. They said they had photos. Veronica turned and walked into her office, heart pounding, not with guilt, but with fury. She paced to the windows, looking out at the skyline, but seeing only fragments of memory. Maya holding her hand, Jackson's quiet gratitude, the sunlit stables. She picked up her office phone and dialed Jackson directly. He answered. It's Veronica, she said, voice low and sharp. We have a problem. He didn't miss a beat. I know. Reporter came by my place this morning, said someone tipped them off. Veronica sank into her chair. We were careful. Who would do this? I don't know, Jackson replied, calm but tight. But someone clearly wants to stir mud. Veronica paused. We need to talk today. My place. Discreet. I'll be there, Jackson said. She hung up, but her thoughts kept racing. In the business world, perception could be weaponized. She had spent 2 decades building a legacy on precision, dignity, discipline. This intimacy, this softness, wasn't meant to be public fodder. By the time Jackson arrived at her penthouse that evening, Veronica had already uncorked a bottle of wine, but hadn't touched a drop. He walked in quietly, wearing a dark hoodie and jeans, carrying a weary look. She doesn't know, he said. Maya, I won't tell her unless it's necessary. Good, Veronica replied, because this is going to get ugly. They sat at the kitchen island. No pretenses, no champagne flutes or catered meals, just 2 people trying to protect something they hadn't even named yet. I've dealt with scandals before, Veronica said. Business scandals, policy leaks, but they're targeting my character. Jackson rubbed his jaw. Mine, too. They'll paint me like some manipulative employee using his daughter to climb into your life. They don't know you, Veronica snapped. Doesn't matter, he replied. Truth doesn't sell papers. A rich white CEO and her black bodyguard playing family on weekends. That sells. She looked down. I hate that you're right. Jackson leaned forward. So, what do we do? Veronica thought for a long moment. We stay ahead of it. I'll call in our legal team and PR department first thing tomorrow. We don't lie, but we don't indulge them either. And us? He asked, his voice softer now. Do we keep doing this? Veronica looked at him. Do you want to stop? He paused. No, but I want to be sure it's not hurting her. Veronica nodded. Then we move forward carefully. No press, no public outings. Not until we're ready. Just then, her phone buzzed. A new message from an unknown number. She opened it and her breath caught. It was a photo, her, Jackson, Maya standing together at the carousel, arms around each other. It had been taken from a distance, likely with a lone lens. Beneath the photo was a caption. Nice image, Mississippi Lane. Makes you look vulnerable. Veronica's face hardened. She passed the phone to Jackson. He stared at it, then exhaled slowly. They're trying to scare you. No, she said coldly. They're trying to control me, and I've never let anyone do that. For the first time, she saw something flicker in his expression, respect mingled with protectiveness. What's the plan? He asked. I fight back, she replied. But we do this together. No secrets, no shame. He nodded, and after a long moment reached across the island and took her hand. Later that night, after he left, Veronica sat alone by her window. The city shimmered below, oblivious to the storm rising above it. She thought of Maya, her laughter, her trust, the hope in her eyes. They had given her more than joy. They had given her something to protect. She opened her laptop and began typing. A letter to the board, to her employees, to the press. It began simply. My name is Veronica Lane. I am many things: an executive, a leader, a woman who built her life brick by brick. But last Saturday, I was something more. I was a pretend mommy to a little girl named Maya. And for the first time in my life, I felt whole. She kept writing, her fingers moving with clarity and fire. If they wanted a story, they were about to get one. And this time, she would tell it herself. By Friday morning, Veronica's letter had circulated internally within Lane Equity Partners. It had gone first to the board, then to senior management, and finally to the broader company, tens of thousands of employees from coast to coast. It was not a press release. It was not polished with PR gloss. It was raw, deliberate, human. When the sun rose, the company's internal message boards lit up. "I've worked here 12 years and never seen anything so honest. She just said what all of us have been afraid to say, that life isn't clean-cut and family isn't always traditional. Maybe for the first time, I believe in our leadership." Veronica sat in her office in silence, watching the quiet storm her words had unleashed. 1,000 responses poured in, and while some were cautious, others were overwhelming in their support. The same woman who had once been labeled the ice queen of finance had dared to show her soul, and it didn't weaken her. It made her real. She glanced at her phone. A message from Jackson. "People at the precinct are asking about you, in a good way." She smiled faintly. But the peace didn't last. By noon, the article hit. CEO Veronica Lane in unusual relationship with bodyguard. Play family raises ethical concerns. The headline was bait. The content worse. The article quoted an unnamed source close to the company alleging impropriety, manipulation of corporate funds for personal travel, and inappropriate blurring of professional boundaries. It featured the carousel photo zoomed in, captioned with calculated venom. "Not your average business outing." Veronica stared at it, rage and disbelief simmering behind her eyes. The article wasn't just invasive. It was cruel. She picked up the phone. "Elena, find out who leaked this and get me Kate Hollander on the line." "Legal?" "Yes, ma'am." Within an hour, the general counsel of Lane Equity was in her office. Kate was sharp, no nonsense, and fiercely loyal. "We're filing a cease and desist," Kate said. "But we both know it won't stop the tabloids. What do you want to do?" Veronica looked at the carousel photo again, then slowly turned her monitor around to show Kate her own letter, the one she'd been drafting the night before. Not the internal version, but something bigger. "I want to publish this publicly, not through a lawyer, through me." Kate read the first lines, her brow arched. "Veronica, this is personal. Are you sure you want this out there? I'm done hiding, and I won't let them turn Maya into a scandal." Kate nodded. "Then let's hit send together." That evening, the letter went live. It was posted on Veronica's official LinkedIn, her personal blog, and emailed to every major news outlet. She didn't deny the carousel photo. She didn't deflect the emotion. Instead, she embraced it. "I am not in a scandal. I am in a moment of kindness, of healing, of saying yes to a child who asked for a mother, not forever, not legally, just for a day. And I said yes because it was the right thing to do, because sometimes humanity matters more than optics." Within hours, the letter went viral. By midnight, it had over 1 million views. Celebrities shared it. Veterans groups commended Jackson for his service and parenting. Working mothers posted about the importance of alternative family models. Single fathers said, "Finally, someone sees us." But not everyone applauded. The board called an emergency meeting. Saturday morning, 10 a.m. boardroom 18B. Veronica walked in dressed in navy slacks, crisp white blouse, and no makeup, just herself. Calm, clear-eyed, prepared for war. 12 men and women faced her from behind a long table. Some sympathetic, some not. "I'll speak first," Veronica said, setting a folder on the table. "I know why we're here, and I know some of you are questioning whether I've jeopardized this company." No one interrupted. "I haven't. But I have redefined what leadership looks like. If you want me gone, say it now. But know this. If you let the tabloids define our standards, we deserve to fail." Silence. Then a slow nod from one of the oldest members, Mr. Hannigan, the former CEO. "I was skeptical," he admitted. "But I've read the employee responses. I've read your letter, and I've seen more trust in this company in 48 hours than I've seen in the last 5 years. He turned to the others. We stand behind her unanimously. Relief didn't wash over. Veronica settled like a steady anchor. She nodded once respectfully. Then let's get back to work. As the meeting dispersed, she returned to her office. Her phone buzzed again. A video from Jackson. It was Maya in her pajamas, sitting in bed. "Hi, Mommy Veronica," she said, yawning. "Daddy told me people are being mean to you, but I know you're a good person. You're my hero." Veronica swallowed the lump in her throat. Jackson's voice came on next. "We're proud of you, no matter what." She closed her eyes for a moment, then whispered, "So am I." That night, alone with her thoughts, she realized something simple but profound. When you stop fearing how the world will see you, you start seeing yourself more clearly, and she liked what she saw. The following week unfolded like a ripple through water. Veronica returned to her usual pace: morning briefings, financial projections, investor calls, but something fundamental had changed. The walls she'd built over decades of discipline were still standing, but the windows were now open. People smiled at her more. Some approached with quiet words of support. Others simply nodded with new respect. Still, the media attention hadn't entirely subsided. While most coverage now leaned in her favor, supportive headlines couldn't erase the unease of knowing her private life had been cracked open for all to see. On Wednesday, as she reviewed a quarterly report in her office, Elena poked her head in. "There's someone here asking to see you." A woman says her name is Karen Bishop. She wouldn't say what it's about, but she insists it's personal. Veronica frowned. Did she say how she knows me? She said she used to know Jackson. That got her attention. "Send her in." The woman who entered was in her early 40s. Striking in a no-nonsense way. She carried herself like someone who'd had to fight for respect and had grown tired of doing so. She wore simple clothes, but her eyes were sharp. "Mississippi Lane," she said. "Thank you for seeing me. I'm Corinne, Jackson's sister-in-law." Veronica's brow rose. "I wasn't aware Jackson had any in-laws still in touch." Corinne gave a small smile. "It's a long story, one I think you deserve to hear, especially now." Veronica gestured to a chair. "Please." They sat, and Corinne folded her hands on her lap. "I used to be married to Jackson's older brother, Marcus, before he passed. We were close, all of us. But when Jackson lost his wife, he shut the door on almost everyone. Said he couldn't afford to be vulnerable. Not with Maya depending on him. He pulled away from me, from the world." Veronica listened, careful not to interrupt. "I heard about the story, about you and Maya, about the letter, and I had to see for myself. Had to know what kind of woman could reach into his silence and bring him back to life." Veronica blinked, taken aback. "I didn't mean to, but you did," Corinne said gently. "You've done more for that child and that man in a few weeks than some of us managed in years. I thought you should know. You didn't just change Jackson. You reconnected him to his family." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small, worn envelope. "This was from his wife, Lorna," Corinne said. "She wrote it before she passed. Told me to give it to Jackson when I thought he was ready to hear her again. I think he's ready now, because of you." Veronica took the envelope, her fingers tingling. "Thank you," Corinne stood. "You're welcome. And thank you for seeing him, for seeing Maya." When she left, Veronica sat alone, holding the envelope, unsure what to do. She could give it to Jackson or wait. Timing mattered. Some moments required care, patience, and this one felt sacred. Later that evening, Jackson met her at a quiet restaurant in Silver Lake. They'd agreed to lay low for a while, but she'd needed to see him, to talk without the backdrop of suits and scrutiny. He noticed her distant expression as they sipped tea. "You okay?" She hesitated, then slid the envelope across the table. "What's this?" he asked. "It's from Lorna," she said softly. Corrine brought it today. She thinks you're ready. Jackson froze. The envelope sat between them like a weight from another lifetime. He picked it up, hands trembling, and slowly opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, slightly yellowed. Lorna's handwriting elegant and steady. Jackson read silently, eyes moving slowly, his breath catching near the end. Veronica watched his jaw tighten, his shoulders fall. When he folded the letter and set it down, there was silence. She told me not to close myself off, he said, voice thick. Told me to let Maya feel joy even if it hurt. Told me one day someone would come along and I'd know it was okay to try again. Veronica reached across the table, taking his hand. He looked up at her, eyes wet but clear. I think she meant you. She swallowed hard. Jackson, I'm not asking for anything. I don't need a title or a definition, but I'm here as long as you'll let me be. He nodded slowly. Then stay. That's all I need. They left the restaurant quietly, without fanfare. But as they stepped outside, Veronica's phone buzzed. A message from Elena. New anonymous leak. This time internal emails. Someone's trying to keep this story alive. Veronica exhaled, jaw tight. The moment of peace faded. Jackson saw the change in her posture. What now? She looked at him. Now we find out who's trying to tear this down from the inside. He nodded. Then we fight together. And just like that, the evening transformed from one of reflection to resolve. A love once fragile now faced a new test, not just of privacy, but of power. But this time, they weren't afraid. This time they were ready. Because love built in the fire doesn't burn away. It hardens. It endures. By Monday morning, Lane Equity's IT and security teams were on high alert. Veronica had authorized an internal investigation, discreet but thorough. The second leaked confidential emails, taken out of context, hinted at someone with high-level access. This wasn't just gossip anymore. It was sabotage. In her executive suite, Veronica sat with Kate Hollander, her legal chief, and Joseph Harmon, the new head of digital security. The blinds were drawn, the mood taut. We're narrowing the field, Joseph said, pointing to a tablet. These specific email threads were accessed from 3 devices over the last month. One belongs to your assistant, Elena. One to you. The third belongs to Darren Croft. Veronica frowned. Darren? Kate leaned forward. Your former VP of strategy. He left 6 months ago under amicable terms. Joseph added, he still had legacy system access. Apparently, it didn't revoke all permissions when he exited. Veronica leaned back, a storm brewing in her gaze. I trusted Darren. He was at my table for 10 years. Kate's expression hardened. Sometimes the longest relationships hide the deepest resentments. Joseph continued. We traced the IP address behind both leaks to a shared co-working office in West Hollywood, rented by a consulting firm Darren's now affiliated with. Veronica exhaled slowly. Motivation? Kate shrugged. Bitterness. Maybe he saw your moment of vulnerability as a chance to discredit you. Or maybe he's being paid. Veronica's voice dropped. Let's find out. 2 hours later, with legal documents in motion, Veronica did something unexpected. She picked up her personal phone and called Jackson. Meet me, Griffith Park. Same spot we took Maya to fly kites. When she arrived, he was already there, leaning against a shaded tree, arms folded. He looked calm, but Veronica knew him well enough now to spot the tension in his stance. What's going on? He asked. She explained everything. The investigation, the name, the betrayal. When she finished, he was quiet. Then he said, so what now? You drag him into court? I will if I have to, she replied. But I want to offer him a chance to come clean. I want to look him in the eye and see what kind of man he's become. Jackson nodded slowly. You want me there? Veronica hesitated. Yes, I want him to see what I'm not willing to lose. The next day, they arranged a meeting. Darren Croft arrived at a quiet private conference room in a midtown legal firm Veronica trusted. He looked older than she remembered, thinner, pale, eyes darting like a man who'd already lost too much. He walked in, surprised to see Jackson seated beside her. "Veronica," Darren said, forcing a smile. "This is unexpected." "Not as unexpected as betrayal," she said flatly. He blinked, then scoffed. "Is this about the media?" She opened a folder and slid it across the table. "Proof of your IP address, your credentials, your access to internal files. We know you leaked the story and the emails." He opened the folder, barely looked at it. "Why do you care? You built a fortress. A little bad press won't tear it down." "You didn't do this for justice," she said. "You did it because I walked away from your plan to spin off our equity funds. You thought I betrayed you." "You did," he snapped. "We were going to be kings, Veronica. You threw it away for what?" "A child's drawing and a single dad's smile." Jackson stood, eyes flaring. But Veronica raised a hand. "Sit down, Jackson." She faced Darren again, voice like steel. "You never understood. You thought power was about control. I've learned it's about purpose, and I won't apologize for letting something real into my life." Darren leaned back, his arrogance flickering. "You can't prove I sold the story." "No," she said, "but we can prove enough. And we're ready to go public with it." He paled. "I'm offering you a choice," Veronica said, sliding a second document across the table. "Sign this agreement, publicly admit the leaks, issue an apology, and walk away, or I drag your reputation through court until there's nothing left." Darren stared at the document. "You'd really do that?" "I protect what matters," she said. He looked at Jackson, who hadn't moved, but whose presence loomed like a wall of quiet fury. Finally, Darren picked up the pen. "I always thought you were cold, Veronica. Turns out you were just waiting for the right fire." He signed and walked out. When he was gone, Jackson exhaled. That was surgical. Veronica didn't smile. "I didn't enjoy it." "You shouldn't," he said. "But you did what you had to." That evening, Veronica sat in her penthouse, lights low, Maya's drawing still on her fridge. The world was quieter now, still fragile, but calmer. The attacks had been deflected. The story was shifting again, from scandal to strength. Her phone buzzed. A new email. Subject: Community Hero nomination from the Children's Advocacy Council. Dear Mississippi Lane, your recent actions on behalf of single parents and your public letter have led to your nomination for the Community Hero Award. You have inspired a wave of donations, volunteerism, and awareness around the definition of family and the role of kindness in leadership. Veronica read the message twice. Then she smiled. This wasn't about awards. It wasn't about vindication. It was about the quiet, powerful act of choosing to show up for a little girl's birthday, for a man rebuilding his world. And now for herself. And it wasn't over yet. Saturday morning arrived with the scent of summer in the air, warmth lingering in the wind. The sun casting a soft gold across Los Angeles. Veronica Lane stood in front of the bathroom mirror, brushing a few strands of hair back as she tried on a pair of earrings she hadn't worn in years. Small mother-of-pearl studs, not elegant, not fierce, just gentle. She looked at herself differently now, not with scrutiny, but with softness, the kind she saw reflected in Maya's eyes each time the little girl called her, Mommy Veronica. Today they were going to a block party hosted by the local community where Jackson and Maya lived. It was an annual tradition: food, music, games, local vendors. This year, Veronica had been invited not just as a guest, but as a sponsor. It was her way of saying thank you. When her car pulled up outside Jackson's modest home, Maya burst through the front door in a floral dress and pink sneakers, waving wildly. You came. You really came. Veronica stepped out, crouched low, and opened her arms. Maya ran into them with the force of joy only a child could carry. Jackson followed with a soft chuckle. She's been up since 6, picked out her outfit by herself. Said, you were classy, but fun, so she had to match. Veronica stood, smiling. I love her style. The three of them walked down the sidewalk together toward the park, blending into the rhythm of families gathering, kids chasing each other with balloons, grills smoking in the corners of the lot. Music thumped from a live band playing soulful jazz, and the scent of barbecue hung thick in the air. A few curious glances followed them at first. Veronica Lane, CEO of a billion-dollar firm, walking hand in hand with a little black girl in a neighborhood where power rarely visited. But as neighbors began to recognize her not as a news headline, but as Maya's other mommy, they opened up. She's real, one older woman whispered to her friend near the lemonade table. She didn't just write some letter. Another replied, she showed up. Veronica met these eyes with kindness, nodding, speaking, asking names. She helped serve food at the grill station, handed out water bottles to volunteers, and even joined Maya for the three-legged race, losing spectacularly and laughing all the way to the grass. Jackson stood back for a while, just watching. There was something sacred about seeing the people in his world embrace the woman who had entered it so unexpectedly. She wasn't playing a role anymore. She was becoming part of it. Later in the day, as the sun softened and the air turned cooler, the community center leader called for attention on the small stage. We've got a lot to celebrate today, the woman said into the mic. And we've got someone very special here, Mississippi Veronica Lane, who didn't just support this year's block party. She showed us what leadership with a heart looks like. Applause broke out. Veronica's eyes widened as she was ushered toward the stage. She took the microphone, glancing down at Maya in the crowd, then to Jackson just behind her. I don't usually give speeches outside of boardrooms, she began, chuckling softly. But today isn't about titles or deals. It's about community, about finding family where you don't expect it, about choosing to stay even when you're afraid. She paused, voice warming. I said yes to a little girl's question, just for 3 hours. That yes changed my life. And I'm standing here today because she reminded me that sometimes the most important decisions aren't made in offices. They're made in parks, on birthdays, in laughter, and in trust. She looked at Jackson, locking eyes with something deeper than words. Thank you for letting me be part of this. I'm not going anywhere. The crowd erupted into cheers. When the event ended, people lingered. Some hugged her. Some simply nodded with quiet gratitude. And when it was time to walk home, Maya clung to both her hands, one on each side, humming as she skipped back at Jackson's house. As the sun dipped low, he lit a few candles and offered her tea on the back patio. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the wind rustling through the trees. Then Jackson spoke. You didn't have to do all that today, but you did. Veronica turned to him. It wasn't for show. I know, he looked at her, eyes steady. So, what now? She took a deep breath. Now, we stop calling this temporary. If you're willing, I'd like to make us official. Whatever that looks like for you, for Maya. Jackson blinked. Are you saying I want to be part of her life? Not just on weekends. Not as mommy for a day, but for real. He reached out, gently, taking her hand. Then, let's figure it out together. Inside the house, Maya peeked from behind the curtain, grinning from ear to ear. Are they finally saying yes to each other? She whispered to her stuffed bear. Took them long enough. And outside, under the glow of backyard lanterns and the hum of a growing hope, a new kind of family took root, not defined by blood, but by the choice to love fiercely and fully, even when the world said it was complicated, especially then. A week had passed since the block party, and the sun was just beginning to set behind the glass towers of downtown Los Angeles when Veronica sat in her office, looking out at the horizon. Her desk was unusually cluttered, not with contracts or proposals, but with colored drawings, a half-eaten cookie Maya had left during her last visit, and a small glittery heart-shaped sticker stuck to the edge of her laptop screen. It read, "You're the best mommy ever." She ran her fingers over the sticker, then exhaled deeply. The last few weeks had changed everything. Her priorities, her sense of self, her relationship with Jackson and Maya. But with clarity came consequences. Integrating her private life with her public persona wasn't just a choice. It was a challenge. Her phone buzzed. It was a calendar reminder. Board Strategy Retreat. 8 a.m. Napa Valley. She had nearly forgotten. The retreat was a 3-day closed-door summit, bringing together the firm's senior decision-makers to plan for the coming year. It was mandatory, but more importantly, it was the first time she would step back into a room where every eye would measure her not just as a CEO, but as a woman who had recently very publicly chosen love, family, and vulnerability. She wasn't afraid, but she was aware. As she finished packing that night, Jackson called. "You packed your power heels?" He teased, his voice warm in her ear. "I considered sneakers," she replied, curling up on the couch with a glass of wine. "But I don't think the boardroom's ready for that." There was a pause. Then Jackson said, "I told Maya you'd be away a few days. She wanted to know if I could send her drawings to your hotel." Veronica smiled, her chest tightening. "Tell her I want one for each night. She's already working on it. Glitter included." There was a silence that stretched, not uncomfortable, just full. Then Jackson asked, "When you get back, would you consider moving in?" The question landed like a soft knock against the door of her heart. She didn't answer right away. "Not for my sake," he continued. "But Maya keeps setting the dinner table for 3. And I think maybe it's time." Veronica closed her eyes, letting the moment bloom inside her. "Yes," she said finally. "When I get back, we'll talk about where my toothbrush goes." He chuckled. That's the start of every great commitment. The next morning, the plane lifted off just as dawn cracked open the sky. As the clouds swallowed the city, Veronica allowed herself a few quiet moments of reflection. She wasn't just attending a retreat. She was stepping into the next test of her leadership, a space where business and heart had never quite fit together before. She had built her reputation on being unshakable. But now she knew strength didn't come from being untouchable. It came from choosing what mattered, even when it hurt. The retreat was held at a private estate surrounded by vineyards and tall whispering pines. Elegant, corporate, discreet. The first session began with polite handshakes and cautious glances. Most of the board had seen the letter. Many had read the articles. Some had seen her speech at the block party, which had gone viral online and found its way into corporate circles. After a lengthy morning session on international expansion, the chair of the board, Hannigan, called for a closed-door discussion on leadership brand and public responsibility. Veronica knew it was coming. She took her seat at the end of the long oak table. Every chair filled with someone who could either shape or shake the company's future. "We've received mixed feedback," one board member began. "The story humanized you, but it also made us a target for scrutiny. Investors have asked if your personal choices are influencing corporate direction." Veronica folded her hands. "They are, and they should." The room stiffened. She continued, "Leadership isn't sterile. It's not separate from life. I made decisions, publicly and privately, that reflect integrity, compassion, and courage. If that's not the kind of leadership Lane Equity wants, then I'm not the right person to lead it." There was silence. Then Hannigan leaned forward, his gaze sharp. "You once told me a leader must be willing to stand alone. But what if the world finally wants to stand with you?" She met his eyes. "Then I'll welcome them, but I won't shrink to make them comfortable." He smiled slightly. "Good, because next week we're being honored at the National Business and Values Awards, and I intend for you to accept it on behalf of what leadership truly means now." Veronica blinked. "That's unexpected." "It's deserved," Hannigan said. "Don't doubt that." That night, back in her suite, Veronica found a package on her bed. It was from Jackson. Inside was a small notebook. On the first page was a note in Maya's handwriting. "Dear Mommy Veronica, this is for your stories. I hope you write about me, Daddy, and you. Love, Maya." Beneath it, Jackson had written, "Whatever stories you tell next, let them be ours." She closed the book, pressed it to her heart, and let the tears come not from sadness, but from the quiet joy of being seen, of belonging, of knowing that for the first time in her life, she wasn't leading alone. 2 weeks later, Veronica Lane stood behind a curtain just off stage at the National Business and Values Awards Gala in San Francisco. The room beyond was grand, high ceilings, sparkling chandeliers, and tables draped in navy linens surrounded by hundreds of executives, philanthropists, and thought leaders. The air buzzed with conversation and the faint clink of glasses. But Veronica didn't hear any of it. Her focus was inward, steady. In her hands was Maya's notebook, the one Jackson and his daughter had gifted her at the retreat. Inside were doodles, dreams, and a few short sentences about roller coasters and chicken nuggets. One page said in Maya's messy handwriting, "My mommy is brave. Even when people are mean, she keeps showing up." Veronica closed the notebook and slipped it into her clutch just as the announcer's voice echoed across the ballroom. And this year's recipient of the Leadership Through Integrity Award goes to a woman who redefined corporate courage not by playing it safe, but by standing in the storm and choosing humanity. Please welcome Miss Veronica. She walked onto the stage slowly, deliberately, each step a quiet defiance of the old narrative that strength must wear armor. Tonight she wore navy, a soft silk dress that flowed instead of fought. Her heels clicked softly against the stage floor as she approached the podium. The applause was warm, sustained, but she didn't raise her hand to silence it. She let them clap. Let them see her. All of her. When it finally quieted, she looked out at the crowd and said, "I used to believe that leadership meant being the smartest voice in the room, the sharpest, the most controlled, but that kind of leadership builds walls, not bridges." She paused, her voice steady but personal. Then one day a little girl asked me a question. "Could you be my mommy for just 3 hours?" I said yes. And in doing so, I said yes to something far greater than her request. I said yes to change, to vulnerability, to the kind of strength that bends but doesn't break. Somewhere in the crowd, cameras flashed. But she didn't look at them. She looked at the people, their eyes, their stillness. They were listening. I've learned that the best leaders don't hide from life. They need it. They say yes when it's inconvenient. They stand tall not because they've never been hurt, but because they've chosen to heal out loud. I'm proud to accept this award. But I accept it not just as a CEO. I accept it as a woman, a mentor, and now a part of a very real, very messy, beautiful family. Another pause. I dedicate this to Maya, who reminded me that sometimes the most powerful words in the world are, "I believe in you." The room erupted in a standing ovation. Later that night, back in her hotel suite, Veronica pulled off her heels, curled up on the couch, and turned on her phone. There were dozens of messages, but one stood out. Jackson's. It was a photo of Maya asleep, holding a printout of Veronica on stage. Beneath it, his text read, "She waited up but didn't make it. Said she'll watch your speech in the morning with pancakes." Veronica smiled through misty eyes. She typed back, "Tell her she's the best thing that ever happened to me." Then she added, "And you, too." Before bed, she stood by the window and looked out over the city. Lights flickered like stars. Somewhere down there, change was happening in boardrooms, on playgrounds, in the quiet spaces where people dared to say yes to one another. When she returned to LA the next morning, Maya was waiting outside the arrivals terminal, holding a homemade sign that said, "Welcome home, Mommy V." Veronica knelt, and Maya launched into her arms, laughter ringing. Jackson approached, coffee in hand, eyes full of warmth. "You killed it up there." Veronica looked up. "You watched 3 times." She grinned. "You're biased." "I'm invested," he corrected. "There's a difference." They drove home together. No longer visitors in each other's lives, but a family in motion. The future wasn't mapped. It didn't need to be. That afternoon, as Maya colored in her favorite chair, Veronica unpacked the last of her things into the hallway closet. Her shoes fit next to Jackson's. Her coat hung beside his, and in the center of their shared kitchen table was a new family calendar. It read, "Family Movie Night, Friday. Maya picks." Veronica looked at it and smiled. No title, no ceremony, just a life built day by day, truth by truth. She whispered to no one in particular and everyone at once. We made it. And for the first time, not as a CEO, not as a placeholder, but as a mother, a partner, and a woman full of heart, she was.